Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This big show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 2 of Tales of the Walking Dead. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. If you never heard me say this before, I talk about it all the time. Time travel is one of my favorite, science fictional things. I've said it time and time again. I've said it a lot recently. But I also have talked about countless times how much I love time loops. And I wasn't expecting this episode to be a time loop episode. But I also love how they play with it as the episode progresses to kind of be like, okay, so maybe... Because I was like, okay, there's no way they're just going to make this a time loop thing. Because my immediate thought was like, okay, so maybe they're both dead. Or maybe this episode was going to be like, oh, this is what's happening. Well... it's like, oh, when someone's a walker and they're kind of trapped in their own body, maybe this is a little bit of, that last little spark of light that dims out before they're fully gone. Almost like their life flashing before your eyes. I was wondering if there's a little bit of something of that. But their explanation for things I thought was kind of interesting. Because initially, Gina is looking up stuff on the computer about her boss being like, oh, maybe my boss is a sociopath. Or maybe she has this, bipolar, I guess there's, variations, levels to just there's different diabetes and obviously different stages of cancer. I guess maybe there's different stages of bipolar or just different levels. Because she was like bipolar 1, 2, 3 ? Narcissistic. And then also one thing she put up was fully a dude, which I was like, hey, that's so interesting. Because if you're unaware, the Joker sequel, Joker by Todd Phillips, with Joaquin Phoenix. The Joker's, the sequel subtitle is fully a dude. So I think that's the general, population's introduction to that term. So for that term to get used in this episode was kind of cool. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And they kind of talk about it in the episode, but basically the gist of it is a shared madness between two or more people. So they kind of really lean into that. And I'm like, okay, so that's your explanation for what this episode was. Either way, like I said, I thought it was so interesting. I think this episode, to be fair, the show, The Walking Dead in general, not even just The Walking Dead, even Fear the Walking Dead has really played with the notion of things aren't always 100% grounded. We're talking about a zombie apocalypse, so how grounded can you be? But still, all the times, Rick, it makes sense, in his last episode, he was kind of dying, so, his life was flashing before his eyes, so he was seeing a lot of people that are no longer around, so that makes sense. Then there's the whole, Grace situation of her, baby Athena, and, that kind of alternate world she was living in. It's stuff like that ends up happening in the show, so it's not So, the weird stuff of The Walking Dead isn't, but we've never had anything like this to this degree. And for the characters to remember it, too, is so interesting. That's any good time loop story. I should also point out, the actress, I want to say is Jillian, I want to say it's Belle. I know one of the things I know she's best known for is Workaholics. I've never seen it, but I know that's one of the things she's known for. And Parker Posey, the thing I know her best from, is, God, what's the, Lost in Space on Netflix. I was like, oh, that's pretty dope. Also, what was the guy's name? Joel? I was like, hey, was it Sam in Ozark? And that actor makes a small appearance in, season 4 of Stranger Things. If you haven't seen Stranger Things season 4, I won't even spoil who they are, but they play they're only in they make very, very tiny appearances. Throughout the season of season 4 here in a small capacity. So it was just interesting seeing you in this as well. Either way. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting dynamic of right. And like I said, time frame wise, I like that the show is going to be bouncing all in between time because last episode was in the first year of after the fall. This one is in the middle of everything. This is around the time before Rick went in his coma and stuff like that. So it's still early days and everything. And obviously, Blair is not the greatest boss. She sucks. And Gina, I love that Gina has so few lines in the beginning of the episode just because Blair's just taking the time to shit on Gina for whatever reason. Then going to the gas station and that whole sequence of events unfolding like that. And the moment the truck exploded, I was like, wait, what? And then we restarted. I was like, wait, we're doing a time loop episode? Not the thing I expected us to do in The Walking Dead. But I think that's, once again, what's so unique about this show because they are just these isolated episodes. You can really genre bend like that. You can lean into something like that. Or like I said, the last episode being almost this comedy buddy trip in a weird way. You know what I'm saying? It's like one of those, like almost like a road trip, like aesthetic and feel like you get from like a road trip movie or something. I just thought that was interesting. And I guess we are really, because I want to say there might be one episode, having caught a glimpse of the episode title, I think there's one episode, at least that I'm aware of, that isn't a buddy episode. Because I talked about that last episode, my thought was that like one episode, like it was like almost like a cartoon like show where it's like, oh, like 15 minutes or something. It's like about one episode and the other 15 minutes is about that, or 12 minutes, you know, without commercials. I thought that's what this is going to be like. Half the, like 20 some minutes of the episode is going to be about one character and the other 20, like I thought that's how the episode was going to be structured. I didn't realize it was pairings. So we got it last episode, we got it this episode. But like I said, I think there's at least one episode that isn't titled after a pair. I think it's just one person, but I could be mistaken. Either way, focusing back on this episode, for both of them to kind of remember and look at each other like, wait, did that just happen? It's like, no. And, you know, Blair's thinking like, oh, I'm having deja vu. And the moment she gets to the gas station and she sees Gina there, because Gina goes to the storefront and she turns and looks in the direction of Blair being like, okay, no. And she immediately gets her shotgun and just everything constantly like unfolds like that. And I just love that they found themselves kind of repeating this cycle time and time and time again until like at one point Gina like, blew up at Blair because I can't remember which one happened first. I want to say the one where Blair had Gina arrested and things still kind of went pear-shaped because it was like, right, they were in the truck with Wendell because the Homeland Security agent who was bitten. So regardless of whatever happened, that story with Wendell was always going to end badly. Just because, like, yeah, his dad was already infected, so it spent enough time. Just like that lady's husband kills her, it would have happened the same thing with Wendell and his dad. Like, his dad would have ended up turning and killing him, sadly. Because obviously at this point in time, they don't know, oh, if you get to it fast enough, you can chop off the limb. Well, but Fears also kind of showed you, like, well, what if you don't get to it in time with the whole Alicia thing? We saw, like, oh, it can work with Herschel, but it didn't necessarily work out with Alicia necessarily. But either way, I just, you know, I think it's so interesting how The Walking Dead kind of like plays with some of like the story elements that is kind of set up before and kind of give you like the other side of, oh, what if things didn't work out in that regard? Once again, like the Rick situation in comparison to John Dory Jr. Either way, that fact is I love the Wendell thing and I love that Blair was on she's like, take the seatbelt off, and it's like, Blair, stop yelling at him, but she's like, Wendell, take the seatbelt. It's like, it's okay. She gets in the car, Blair gets eaten, God. Gina gets eaten, the car still the truck still explodes. It's like, no matter what they do, and then it's at one point in time, Blair shoots Gina, but Gina comes back and bites her, and it's just like it's just like this fast-paced montage of shenanigans of just like it all going wrong. I think before the montage, Gina leaned into Blair being like, everyone hates you. It's like, just shut up. You just talk and you talk and you talk. And then when you're done, you just keep talking. It's like, you're so annoying. Everyone hates you. Jasmine, you should hear the stuff she says about you. She doesn't like you. She also doesn't like your hair. And just like the fact that Blair's sitting there taking it. And it's like, yeah, Joel, he wants to go see his daughter. Was it Emmy? It's Emily. Oh, Emily. It's like, yeah, close enough. He wants to see her play soccer. It's like, you're such a dick, you know? Just like, stop talking, stop being an asshole. And she's walking away and it's like, I'm selfish. You're selfish. She's like, that was the first thing I said. That means you didn't listen to a damn thing I said afterwards. I love it. It's so good. It did hit. But she was just so taken aback that she was just like, no, I have to fire back. You know, got to give it just as much as I've got. But it's like, yeah, you're a selfish person, because the fact is that this is all happening because if you had just stayed at your desk and done the job and stayed here like I told you to, you wouldn't have gone to the gas station. None of this would have ended up happening. But it's like, right, the problem is she's also not making the situation any better because she's not helping the circumstances and I love that they eventually both kind of realize like, we both are kind of being selfish in our own regards. Like I said, but after the montage, it's just kind of like a thing of them sitting there and like, wow, that woman, when she gets bitten, she screams the exact same way every single time. I even love at one point, Blair had, I keep doing that. Gina had like hit the guy in like the nuts with the gun or whatever, the shotgun. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I bet that hurt. Also, it's like Wendell, oh, he's got like a Band-Aid on his, toy or something. They're like, yeah, I bet you if he grew up, he would have been a doctor or something, you know? And it's like, oh, because they felt bad because they're like, yeah, Wendell is like, it sucked. Like, he's such a young kid. And it's just, they end up sitting down, just hashing it out. It's like, Gina talks about the fact that she's trying to get to her family. Her brother and her nieces are all she has. So she wants to get to them because Blair learned from the Homeland Security agent that there's only 2 exits out of town because every other place has been blocked by the military. And that's not something, and it's been super long since early Walking Dead. To be fair, I don't remember. I mean, because Rick woke up later, so who knows if that group had to initially ever deal with that. But obviously, I think the only show that doesn't really cover like the military side of things is World Beyond. I think that's the only one that's really covered that. I don't remember if there was any really military action in Fear, but I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've seen like season 1, because season 1 is where it would have really come up. Same thing for The Walking Dead. Season 1 and season 2 would have been that, but I don't think the military was really, because by then it probably, because at that time it'd been a long time and like the military probably had already like been kind of dispatched of. So, but I want to say Fear is the only one that's really touched on like a military presence, because it's like, right, those were like, that's when shit started hitting the fan, and this is in the middle of shit hitting the fan, this episode in particular. So either way, so she's just like, right, stop trying to stop me at the gas station. Just let me go. Just let me get my nieces and my brother and just leave me alone. And so she ended up finally just like letting it happen and everything, and ended up going back, she stayed at the office when Gina went to the gas station, got the truck and bounced. And Blair stayed behind and told everyone just to kind of go. She's like, I know. She's like, no, I like your highlights. It's like, I know you don't. I know you hate my hair and you hate me, but whatever. Everyone just go. And she's just chilling, and her fiance shows up, and it's like, why is it that every time, like, you know, I thank you, you were there for me when my dad was dying, and you were so supportive, and I love you for that. But every time I was getting hurt, like anytime I was like dying, you never took more than 2 steps. Like, you never really, like, it's like in retrospect, you're like, right, he never did ever get in the middle of whatever she was. Like, she be in the middle of something, he just stayed behind. And he even made that remark of, you're quiet. She's like, so? He's like, you're never quiet. It's like, yeah, he even acknowledges, like, you run your mouth a lot. But for her, it's like, this isn't a good thing. She's like, we don't have enough time to waste on, like, yeah, like, we could do the whole rigmarole of, like, okay, let's stay together just to stay together for staying together's sake, and then just sit through it as everything kind of falls apart, and eventually they're like, wow, we shouldn't have gotten together, but we got together, so let's split up now. It's like, let's move past all that, and just like, no, we're not good together, let's split up, go to the island and be safe, you know, where they were supposed to be vacationing. And so she actually goes outside, lets some walkers bite her because she was just tired of it all. But both her and Gina find themselves right there back at the beginning. And it's like, right, Gina didn't find her way out of town because it's like, right, she's like, just like you said, I wasn't going to be able to get out of town. So Blair actually apologized. She's like, right, I'm not the best person. It's like, you didn't like me, and I was just kind of lashing out at you. It's like, it's not that I didn't like you from day one. It's like, you didn't. It's like, okay, you're right. I did hate you. I hated you. But it's like, yeah. So, but it's like them trying to break the cycle this time. So I'm like, right, let's work together. So they worked together. They got the truck, but sadly, the whole situation with the agent and his son didn't play out. Wendell, it sounds like Wendell got bit or whatever, and either like Wendell straight up died, and if he had, even when he did, he would eventually come back. His dad would probably be hovering over his body and eventually get bit by Wendell. So, I mean, his dad was doomed too. So it's like that situation played out the way it did. And for them, it's like, damn, it sucks. It wasn't supposed to play out like that, you know? But both of them recognizing like, right, they're kind of own selfish in their own regard. That in Gina's case, she was, she called herself cowardly because she got complacent. It's like the job she's at currently as a receptionist supposed to be temporary, but she didn't have the right connections to kind of get herself at like a, you know, a big job or whatever. She didn't know the right people, and she just became complacent until she just became angry about where she was. And Blair, it's like, right, her dad dying, and she was kind of unhappy where she was too. So it was just kind of like them both kind of getting stuck in their own ways. And they kind of took it out on each other to some extent. But it's like, right, we're both scared. Like, you know, why did you want to go get the truck? It's like, well, gas is going to be more important than cash. And it's like, oh, that is true. But it's like, at the end of the day, I didn't like try to save my fiance. Like, we just keep stealing this truck and leaving people out. It's not like we're helping anyone, except this time, well, when they barricade past the cops or whatever, they do save people at the bridge, which I was like, oh, that scene, it's been a while. I want to say it's very similar to a sequence in, wasn't there one of the shows did a similar sequence with the bridge? Because I know, like, I want to say Telltale did that, but it was a train track instead. I'm trying to remember. One of the shows did a bridge thing, because I just don't remember which one was it. Like a very similar thing. Was it the OG show? Was it Fear? I don't think it was World Beyond, but it was either Fear or the original Walking Dead. I don't remember now. This was a lot closer to that, but they ended up saving the day, and I love that. It's like, cool, flick the cigarette, trying to have your badass moment, and it doesn't light. And they're like, are you kidding me? The one time we needed to blow up, and it's not going to blow up. Give me that scarf. It's like, no, this is my lucky scarf. Blair, okay. And they luckily blow it up, and it's like, huh, we actually saved the day. We got people to get away from the cars. We blocked it off, and now the walkers are walking to the fire. It's like, yeah. And they're slowly walking. I was like, shit's about to go wrong, right? And, because I was about to say, there's plenty of gas on the ground from when, Gina was about to pour it over the bridge, and it's like, yeah, the truck explodes, and you're like, cool. And I love that they're both sitting there like, huh, are we dead? Like, cause it's like, oh wow, we made it past 5, the cycle's broken. It's like, cool. It's like, but are we dead? Like, what was all of this? And Gina's explanation is, oh, full AD. We were like your personality, like, you know, bridged over to me. And she's like, what? It's like, yeah, we spend so much time together, more time together than we do our own family. So of course, and she's like, oh, so you'd rather, come up with a disease than agree with me. It's like, no, I'm not making anything up. I mean, well, none of this is real. No, but the disease itself is the sickness is real. That's real. So it's like, okay. It's like, I think that is probably I think that is going to be this show's rationale for what this episode was. It was just like a shared delusion, interestingly enough, of like, yeah, like, you know, it's like her personality, like Blair and everything. It's like they were around each other so much, and just, it kind of bled over. But it's like, hey, let's go get your nieces, you know? So it's like your brothers and your niece. So it's like, and your nieces. So it's like, oh, that's pretty dope. So I was actually happy. I was like, oh, so you guys aren't dead. I mean, granted, once again, there's 10 plus years. I think, once again, current timeline wise, it's like 12 years. Cause I still think The Walking Dead is the furthest in the timeline. Cause I still don't fully know where Fear is in the grand scheme of things. I'd assume, because I don't even know if Fear's like 1-to-1 with where Walking Dead is right now. Because you also got to consider, like, there's also been quite a few time jumps. There's been a few in Fear, but there's also been quite a few in The Walking Dead, so that has to be counted for things. But I want to say it's been 12 years since the beginning of everything. I think it's a justification. It's the general rule of thumb, at least with the original show. Because of, like, the bonus episodes in season 10 kind of hinted, like, with the Negan thing being like, oh, 12 years ago. So, I don't know. So, there's at least, like, 12 years of hopefully them surviving. Same thing for, Terry Crews and Olivia Munn's character, because it's been a while. It's been a couple of days since I saw that episode, so I'm blanking on the names off the top of my head. Either way. I just thought it kind of having like a happy-ish ending. I'm not going to let myself get deluded enough to believe like, oh man, like last episode kind of had a happy ending. This episode kind of had a happy. I think it's like, no, I'm not going to let this show fool me, because it's like The Walking Dead is depressing. There's no happy endings necessarily. So I'm like, I'm not going to let myself get deluded enough to believe like, oh, it's all going to be okay. It's like, no. I'm not going to fall for that. Cause I'm sure like the moment I start thinking that, the next episode is going to be uber depressing. And even if that's not the one, I'm going to end up letting my guard down and I'm going to walk away heartbroken and depressed. Like, that's just how this goes. But either way, I'm very, very fascinated to see the approach to the next 4 episodes and just see how everything plays out, their structure, what kind of like storytelling, like what kind of approach each episode kind of takes with this whole, anthology approach to everything. So I'm excited to see ultimately what happens next. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good